Our first session of the day is the Cloud Security Alliance Innovation Summit. That's a mouthful. A unique event promoting the new innovative technologies created by startups and subject matter experts globally for securing cloud computing. In the summit, we'll hear about the latest developments from the Cloud Security Alliance research team and examine new startups and their innovative technologies. Let us welcome the moderator, Moshe Ferber, chairman of the Israeli chapter of the Cloud Security Alliance. Moshe is one of the top global experts in cloud computing security and has been working hard to promote secure adoption of cloud computing. He has helped Israel's government and other bodies realize the best cloud policy for them. But most impressive of all, almost 1% of Israel's adults have benefited from Moshe's Together Alone project, which provides content for older adults through Zoom. Take it away, Moshe.
Oh, hello and welcome all to the Cloud Security Alliance Innovation Summit. It's a great privilege for me to have you here. This is probably the fourth time that we are hosting the Cloud Security Alliance Summit inside the Cyber Week event. Of course, due to COVID-19, this is the first time that this is virtual, so I'll not be able to see all your faces. But hopefully we still have pretty good content for you guys. And this is the first session at the Innovation Conference, and it is my great privilege to present to you this big assembly of amazing founders that I gathered here. We have here Demi Ben-Ari. Hi, Demi. Good to see you. Founder for Panorays, one of the most popular speakers about Google Cloud and about third-party securities. He's been everywhere talking about how to promote secure cloud adoption, how to do third-party security. So thank you for joining us, Demi.
Sure thing. Thank you for having me.
We have here Ofer Maor, a legend on his own. Hi, Ofer. Pleasure to see you. Founder for Seeker that was sold for Synopsys. Founder of Hacktix that was sold to EY, one of the more famous application security guys in Israel. So it's a great privilege to have you here and learning more about MITIGA, right? This is your new current incident response startup. So it's a pleasure to have you. And last but not least, Oded, it's great to have you here. Oded Hareven, coming from Akeyless, one of the more interesting startups that I met recently, doing secret key management, one of the biggest problems that we have in DevSecOps. Oded is also a great guy, and I'm looking forward to hearing you speak. Okay,
Thank you.
Welcome. So all of you are here with me. I think I drew enough time so people can jump in. We are here to talk about innovation and cloud computing. All of you are here because you present something that is new in cloud computing, a new way to promote security, a new way to make us trust those services. So we are here basically to speak to you about the challenges that you encounter in cloud security and how do you think we as a community, you and your company, how do you think we should solve them? Last thing I want to add is thank you to everybody at Tel Aviv University for promoting Cyber Week, for helping us achieving this day, and especially the entire team of Gili, Karen, Liana, and everybody I forget. So thank you, everyone. Okay, moving on, diving in. Ofer, let's talk about cloud security and how is it different from traditional security? And more specifically, you chose to create a company that is doing incident response, and moreover it, you chose a company to do cloud incident response. I mean, what is the difference between cloud incident response and traditional incident response? Why do you think it's such an item to create an entire company on top of it?
So thank you for the question. I think one of the things that drew me to cloud security and cloud incident response right now is that we're in the very early days of this space. I've been doing application security, as you mentioned, starting 20 years ago, and it was early. And it's a really great time to join a space when things are still early and developing. And I think if you look at cloud attacks today, a lot of them are still pretty simple. And if you ask what's different, I think one of the interesting things is in a lot of ways, cloud attacks take us back in some ways to the earlier days of other attacks. misconfigurations, policy, permissions, things we've already been dealing with in other spaces, but now take a new representation, a new facet on this new technology. And I think for us who are in this space and for others who will join in the years to come, we'll see an amazing increase in quantity and in sophistication of cloud attacks. And this is one of the things that drew me to do IR. I think, you know, there are a lot of great companies already trying to solve a lot of problems in this space. And two of these companies are here with me. There are a lot of others in Israel and outside of Israel. But I think what we see is that unlike 20 years ago when I started in software security, attacks are now prominent everywhere. Organizations get breached regularly. Most organizations are going to get a serious breach at least every 2 or 3 years. And this is all moving to the cloud. And I think the attacks are moving to the cloud probably as fast as organizations are moving to the cloud and faster than what security is moving to the cloud. And I think there's just going to be a tremendous amount of need for that. And the other side of that is that if you look at the traditional IR, the on-prem legacy incident response, it hasn't really changed a lot over the last decade. I mean, a lot has changed in the more, let's call it entry-level IR, what the SOC analysts are doing. We see a lot of technology in this space, automation, SOAR, and so on. But if you look at the big catastrophe IR, let's bring in the cavalry, it hasn't changed a lot. It's still somebody outsider coming in. They don't know you very well usually, and now they have to start dealing with everything. And as we were building this idea of forming MITIGA and forming a different way to do incident response in the cloud, we've also realized there's need to change the premise of how IR is handled. And so we're building a platform to better orchestrate IR, and most importantly, to prepare organizations to IR upfront. And I think now that organizations understand that it's not a matter of will I get breached, it's only a matter of when I get breached, then they're more willing to invest resources, time, money in preparation for IR. So when you look at cloud IR, and you ask how is cloud incident response different than traditional incident response? I think at the core, again, there's a lot of issues around what do I get in terms of investigation capabilities, logs, and so on. Traditional IR is 80% EDR or XDR in its new form. It's reading the logs, it's reading the binaries from your servers and hosts and endpoints.
And always you have access to all of them, the server and host and endpoints, yeah. And,
But cloud IR is a lot, it's a lot more diverse to start with. There's infrastructure, but there's the cloud infrastructure, there's the IS infrastructure, and then there's a lot of SaaS and a lot of interfaces. And what we see is that most organizations are completely unprepared for cloud IR. They never touch the log configuration of their cloud provider. They use whatever the default is, which with some of the cloud providers could be as short as 30 or 60 days. Or they turned off a bunch of logs because they were expensive, because we pay in the cloud for everything that we do. And they have absolutely no investigation capabilities. Even if one of the things we do is SOC enablement. We help your SOC to be ready for the lighter weight incidents and detections. There are no playbooks, there are no run books, there's no knowledge for most organizations we meet in cloud, unless some of the newer tech pure cloud companies that are there.
But also this is true for you guys, right? You need to build your own playbook, right? On many occasions, you're going into something that is vague and you're building the playbook as you go.
Yes, so, we started the company a little over a year ago. The first half year was almost entirely research. We spent a lot of time learning this, building playbooks, building run books, understanding how to manage, stream, analyze the logs of the different cloud vendors. And yes, still it's so complicated. There's so many different players and services out there that whenever we get to a new incident, we usually have something else we still need to research, and that's part of the model.
Okay. In a second, I will ask you about a couple of examples for attacks that you witnessed. But in a second, I want to switch to Demi and Oded, give them a little bit a review of what they're doing, and then we go back to this one. Demi, how are you?
Yeah, doing great, thanks.
Panorays is doing more about third-party security. I mean, basically, you're looking at the cloud customer partners and the third parties, and basically checking up the risk. Tell me a little bit about why did you choose this vector to handle with? Why did you think this is the most important thing to handle?
Yeah, thanks, Moshe. So, in general, asking like first of all, what's the cloud? Okay, and basically, if I go and define that, it's basically somebody else's computer. Okay, and somebody else is running infrastructure, and what that infrastructure actually holds is data. And I'm going also like back 20 years, like Ofer mentioned, and he's talking a lot about the shift of the world to different kinds of services. And we're literally like outsourcing most of our abilities right now to the cloud. If it's, the regular cloud hosting, email services, it can be like literally anything, marketing tools. But what we're basically doing is expanding our perimeter, because we spoke about, the on-prem things that used to be like 10 plus years ago. This literally like vaporized, because right now even the on-prem ones are starting to use a lot of like external services, and all of them are hosted on the cloud also. So it's not only like every company that starts its own like path actually based itself on the cloud. All of the services that they're using right now are holding their data on the cloud. So your perimeter has expanded. So it's really hard to actually keep track. Ofer mentioned about like different kinds of abilities, logging, tracking capabilities, and a lot of security controls that they need to put in place. And do they know what to put? Like, this is one of the hardest questions. Like, let's take the example, the CCM by CSA, okay? It has an evaluation purpose of a cloud service provider or any provider, basically. Do they have the proper controls in place? For example, how they encrypt things, how they handle like different kinds of logging capabilities, data retention, speaking a lot about that. And because of that, this is a pain point. Why? Because think of it that these like cloud services today that are being ramped up like on second basis, you would say, it's how do you know how they're securing your data? Right now, you've given the list of all of your customers to a cloud provider. Okay, if somebody actually hacks that, nobody needs to hack to your organization. They basically have a list of all of your prospects and they kill your business. That's it. It's an immediate like impact on your business. So having that ability, for example, sending out the cake and trying to evaluate that service. Okay, this is one ability that people are leveraging to do their own onboarding process of third parties. And when I mean third parties, it doesn't have to be a supplier. It can be a business partner of yours, right? You're integrating to a lot of things in the cloud environment. And Ofer also mentioned that problem, because do you know who do you integrate with? Most of the services are like freemiums. You even don't have control on that. So even like getting visibility on that is really, really hard. So by that, creating a platform that does that on a continuous manner and evaluates the shared responsibility that you have with the cloud provider, this is something super important. How would you do that? Again, without any automation. Because again, going on manual processes, even during COVID time right now, okay, on-prem died. It's kind of like, or dying, I would say, okay? On-site evaluations are gone because people don't want to interact face-to-face. So you immediately have to adopt a lot of cloud services. I saw that on our customers, like literally on February, there was like an immediate peak increase of cloud adoption. Zoom, like it skyrocketed, okay? All of the video conferencing, all of the services.
Video conferencing, sharing, IP telephones.
Everybody are working from home. How do you secure everything? Because usually, I would even mention on Oded premise, the secret management, okay? How do you handle login? Like literally basic things of logging in to different kinds of services that you have, giving permissions. It's hell, okay? How do you actually handle that? And again, think of it that the most common, even like small company, they have around like 300 of these services. Small company. I'm not mentioning even like large enterprises, which might hold like even thousands. We have customers that actually hold hundreds and thousands of vendors. You can't actually keep track on that if you don't have any automation, if you don't leverage the abilities and scaling of the cloud. Okay, and basically by that, you're kind of shifting and expanding your perimeter. So you got to have some kind of visibility and continuous monitoring on that. Because like Ofer mentioned, it's not if something will happen, it's when. Okay, and you want to be prepared for that when.
Okay, very interesting. I'm taking few keywords from this. The continuous. I mean, we used to have point-in-time certification, and we noticed this a very big time between the 12 months between one user and another. That in the cloud, it's eternity. Everything can change. I mean, I can migrate to a different data center through this time. Yes, so continuous is very important. And again, there's a big variety in the market. Not all cloud providers created equal. Not all third-party providers can protect your data, that's for sure. And the third takeaway from this is that supply chain is getting really, really important. I mean, most of the ways that we move into, most of the time that we see some kind of security incidents is coming from the third party, from somebody in your supply chain. Yeah, so later on we'll talk to you about more recommendation to companies that want to adopt secure third-party relationship. But I'll move on to Oded. Oded, good to see you. How are you?
Very good. I just want to refer to something that Demi said. He said that the on-prem is dying. Well, it might be dying, but it's not dead for sure. And it's gonna take a lot of time until it's gonna be dead. And everyone knows it. You know, when not every company that is using, I don't know, Jira, Atlassian, whatever, or Salesforce, it doesn't mean that they use the cloud, isn't it? If they're not using their workloads on the cloud, if they're not using infrastructure as a service, then yeah, they're using SaaS, but it's not the same, isn't it? So that's one comment. And number two is about the supply chain attack. But maybe we'll talk about it later. But this is exactly where we started our company, from the point where you cannot trust your SaaS provider. You cannot trust your SaaS provider because of the fact that they are having your own data. And there are all kinds of solutions for that, by the way, in the market. There's the famous bring your own key, where they provide the ability to provide the encryption keys, like Office do, like Salesforce Shield, all of those famous things. Office 365 and the KMSs of the cloud service providers. And our core technology started exactly from that problem, where how can you keep encryption keys on the cloud without having the cloud provider or the service provider to have some kind of sharing mechanism on your keys. So that's just to start with. We'll later go to that, but basically this is our core technology to allow our customers to hold their secrets while we cannot access it. Yeah,
Okay.
Moshe, I'm with you, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Because you mentioned, basically asked my question. I wanted to ask you about DevSecOps and how are you helping to protect the new challenges that the new system, the new DevOps guys are facing.
Yeah. So DevOps definitely a revolution in any given scale. However you look at it, we're talking about the last 10 years, 7 years, where you started to see developers develop very differently. You saw that in many different aspects, but I think from how we look at things, it's the infrastructure. You have CI tools, CD tools, you have configuration management, everything kind of changes. The IT becomes much more code aware and software aware. So this is obvious today. What we see in the last few years is also this major chaos when it comes to managing secrets, right? Secrets are API keys and certificates and tokens and passwords and credentials, encryption keys, signing keys, all of those that we might say that they were mainly used by human beings interconnecting with machines, but today you have much more machines that you used to have because of the containerization and the automation. So everything is kind of looks differently today when you have all of those trends meet together, the DevOps environment, where they are actually in charge to secure that environment. And when I'm saying DevOps, it's not necessarily just about the CI/CD process, rather than also being inside the production and to support the operations of the production and the security, obviously. So with that chaos of having those objects that are basically made in order to authenticate and authorize in whatever environment, right? It's not necessarily related to the cloud, but the cloud brought this major mess of where do I put the secret? They are too much. And the DevOps guys were very, sensitive to be aware of the fact that if they had it within the on-prem, today when the perimeter is being broken, and then today you have your own secrets, much more of them, in an uncontrolled environment in the public cloud. So all of that like called for a new genre, for a new criteria, for a new category called secrets management, which is the ability to manage in a single unified platform all of those certificates and API keys and credentials and so on and so forth on one single repository, on one single platform, where we're specializing in interconnecting with all of the DevOps platform, from Kubernetes to Jenkins, CircleCI, Chef, Puppet, all of those major DevOps platforms, to include also homegrown applications with various SDKs. And there's lots of authentication ways that applications and platforms are being able to use in order to authenticate and to fetch those secrets, right? So you have the Azure identities and the AWS IAM. You have all of those identities by the cloud providers, but on the other way, you have the XAML OpenID of the human side, right? So humans can also use us as a password management solution, just like LastPass, what that says. But the major thing would be to provide, or is to provide, the service to machines and applications. Now, on top of that, we have seen, when we discussed it with our customers, that they were asking us, okay, so you're managing the secrets, that's great. You're being able to also create just-in-time access for credentials or whatever access that you need. Then it rings a bell. For us, it's like a zero trust solution. And then we said, what do you mean? And they said, well, you already have the ability to become a certificate authority for SSH, to provide SSH certificates. So why not providing end-to-end solution for that? Because you can also identify using XAML and identity providers. So we said, okay, sounds great. So on top of the secrets management solution, we have developed a suite of zero trust solution for developers access, for production access, work from home, and all of that very trendy thing. Then we saw that it's like there's a great demand in the market for that. So we provide it for lots of protocols, for SSH, for RDP, for Kubernetes control, also for SQL and for web applications. So everything is authenticated via XAML and OpenID, and the actual work on the resource itself is being provided using a just-in-time access. And for human interaction, it's also recorded. So in a sense, it's like a 360 around access and secrets.
Okay, very interesting. The topic of secret management is definitely one of the more important. I recently heard an AWS lecture saying that, I think they said that 8 out of 10 incidents is about API keys being neglected somewhere, being sent somewhere. Ofer is nodding.
No doubt. Yeah, Ofer will be able to also provide some data on that. But before that, there's a great research and famous one called "How Bad Can It Get?" That's a fully academic research. They were investigating the Git code repositories and trying to understand what is the most common secret out there, credential that is out there and ready to be captured. So API keys, definitely, this is the one. And that problem would be more and more worse with time, because that everything is today connected. More and more services and micro functions need to communicate with each other. I'll later discuss, if you'd like, Moshe, about our universal identity project. It's a very cool thing, but I'll let Ofer to continue from here.
No, I just want to say one more word. First thing I like is there's definitely secret management is a problem. Second thing, I like the approach of having the developers king. I mean, for many years, we've been trying to enforce security on developers instead of giving them tools and let them work, and instead of trying to build security around them.
In their wording, they call it like a candy shop for them, because for them it's like all of the things that the CISOs were asking and to do, and they were like, okay, leave me alone. But today everything is API driven, and we provide it very, very seamlessly for them to use, and it's talking their language, and everything is SDK based, and so for them it's like great, because they're getting the certificate automations, they're getting the static secret, which is the key value, and they're getting the dynamic access to whatever resource that they need with whatever authentication that they want.
Okay.
I
So,
want I want to say something on this and maybe spoil the party a little bit because after having been 20 years in AppSec and trying to get developers to support security, I'm a huge fan of the DevOps and DevSecOps movement and giving more control to the developers. But what we see is that it's also creating a lot of mess and because not all developers, they all like the tools, but not all of them feel the same about how important security is or what is or isn't considered secure. And when we give them a lot of control, they make a lot of decisions, and some of them are not always the right ones. And that creates a serious governance problem for larger and growing organizations as DevOps is taking more control over security, and it's a big challenge. And a lot of the incidents we see are around things that developers did, not maliciously, of course, just unknowingly, but created a new challenge. So there's a trade-off. I mean, it's great to get the developers on board, but we need to give them the knowledge and tools and governance together with that.
I almost can't believe that I'm hearing that from you, Ofer, after 20 years that we've been, I remember 20 years talking back then with you, by the way, talking about how can we make the developers be more security aware. And today, finally, we're on those days and you're saying, yeah, okay, it's okay, we brought them the security, but it's a big mess. I'll quote you for that.
The challenge is, I've been training developers all my life. They become more aware, but it doesn't mean they have the responsibility and accountability to make the right decisions versus the accountability over go to time market.
As the one that has the card of developers here at this table, give them the chance. They would amaze you.
I think I see many companies approaching that they give they call it guardrails. I mean, they give the developers some kind of way to move in. They're guarding that they will not move to the sides. But there's nothing like a good hacking story to pop up the atmosphere. Ofer, can you share us a couple of stories that will show how cloud is different in terms of incident response?
Sure. I think when we look at the incidents we're dealing with today, I think that they are split into three main areas, right? One of them is, and I mentioned this earlier, security misconfiguration. Probably the most popular would be an S3 bucket with public access that somehow somebody accidentally turned on, or somebody put some policy some completely other place which accidentally turned it on. So that's one family of incidents. The second family is more around fraud, but it's just been growing a lot with all the cloud mail providers, which is business email compromise. And we've seen a lot of really interesting things. We've just recently published an article on a very big campaign of business email compromise with over 150 affected companies and tens of millions of dollars of fraud. But I don't want to get into that, even though it's interesting, because I want to get into the third category, which I think is more relevant to the discussion we're having here. And that is around SaaS, and specifically third is SaaS marketplaces. And so we see a lot of effort and a lot of attackers working now in the SaaS marketplace. So what is a marketplace? A marketplace is, let's say I have GitHub, and in GitHub, you can buy various capabilities from third-party providers that work directly on your code. You can do that in Salesforce. You can do that in Slack. You can do this in Office 365. Every SaaS provider you have today has a marketplace. And if they don't, they're going to have one soon. Monday's now launching theirs. Everybody wants a marketplace. A marketplace is the way for SaaS vendors to scale and grow and make money off somebody else. So we love marketplaces. And as a DevOps guy, marketplace is fantastic. I can get so many things done. We just set up a new contact center, a call center for MITIGA. We hired some third-party company, and they immediately offered Slack integration into our Slack, and I get to launch their app, and it just requests this small permission to read and write from all our Slack channels. Of course, I said no, and we found another way to integrate, but most people are not there. So we recently had a customer that got hacked through GitHub. What does it mean? one of their developers, great guy, wanted to try out a static analysis software or static analysis capability for security, by the way, right? Great. And they enabled on their GitHub repository this third-party app. And that app, naturally, because it does static code analysis, needs permissions to the code. Read-only permissions, still permissions. And this company got hacked. The provider, the static analysis provider, got hacked. They got hacked through a spear phishing campaign, and the hackers got their OAuth token to GitHub, which they used to get access to all the code of all the customers who used it. And by the way, this customer, they weren't even using the product. They just did a pilot. It wasn't a great product, so they stopped using it, but the permissions were never removed.
But the permission left and the OAuth token left. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the attackers got access to their code. Luckily for these guys, that was the impact, but I'll get to that in a minute. But we've read online on other companies who were affected by a similar attack where this was used to get secrets from their code, or that's just what you're trying to solve, and with their secrets to get their data. So one of the more famous attacks in using this method was the Davecom attack, where they got access to 7.5 million records and a lot of mess. So what we had to do with our customer, though, right? We knew their code was removed. Was accessed. So we now had to spend with them a lot of effort to make sure that none of the secrets that were in their code was actually used to access their systems. So we went through their entire code. We found all the secrets. We checked for each, they had various cloud providers. For each cloud provider, go through all the logs, make sure there's no unauthorized access and so on, find all these little leads and validate they're not malicious. But it's interesting because they've been going, and again, then I think you'll find that interesting, they've been going through a process of removing a lot of their secrets from the code and replacing it with secret management. But guess what? GitHub has history of all their code, and you get all the secrets there. So when you remove a secret, you should probably also change it so you don't have something out of date there. And so it was a really interesting experience. Luckily, again, for them, we came in early enough, and together with them, of course, we changed all the secrets and everything. And so they didn't suffer any major breach because of that. But this is going to be happening in more and more places. We've seen another attack.
There's an automatic solution for that, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but there's an automatic solution for that from the world of just-in-time and dynamic access, but we can talk about that later.
And so we've seen another attack where community AMIs on Amazon were used to insert crypto miners into environment. And Windows 2008 server, a lot of the more bigger, slower organizations are still using Windows 2008. They need a cloud instance. There's no official support for that anymore, so they have to download a community AMI. And they bring in a community AMI, and that steals money from them using crypto. And so from what I see, this is going to be probably one of the biggest attack vectors in the years to come, generally speaking, not just GitHub. It's going to be the marketplace's attacks. Organizations turn on dozens of applications on their marketplaces. And Demi, what you're doing with third parties is going to be a big help in addressing that.
Yeah. First of all, very interesting. Very interesting. The lessons learned in blood, the changing the code when you migrated from the old versions. Definitely so. Demi, what would you say to companies that, somebody is listening, is now thinking about his 1,000 third parties, his secrets? I mean, what recommendation you give your customers about making their data secure?
So in general, I couldn't agree more with Ofer. Like these whole pluggable marketplaces, which seem amazing, like saving time and everything. I am so paranoid about them. I'm even like managing our third parties through our own platform. And every time that somebody asks me access to our Salesforce, to our Slack, to our anything, like, I'm super paranoid because right now you're literally giving them access to everything and you don't even have control on that. Like what you mentioned was super funny. They just had a trial. Okay. That's it. It's just a, naive trial that you're basically giving them access to everything. And without any engagement, nobody spoke with you, like the shadow IT thing, and it's with a click of a button. So this is like an immediate risk on your company without even you understanding anything. So the cloud provider or the service provider that you're kind of engaging with, it's literally something that you need to be really, really aware of. And getting that continuous visibility is super important, right? And again, like when something will happen, and I'm stating that when, you need to at least understand how to respond to that, how you're communicating with that third party, what kind of access they have, okay? How you mentioned about the mitigation action of actually changing secrets, okay? How do you know where to change? Again, all of these things are bound to the context that you're working with a third party. So it's not like getting some kind of scorecard on a vendor or a third party or cloud provider or something. You need to create some kind of relationship with him. Okay, when you're engaging with an entity, or at least like clicking that button of add or integrate, which seems like amazing. And again, you have everything communicating with everything and kumbaya. Before that, you need to understand at least like what type of information you're passing to that. And this is the first thing that I'm saying to all of our customers. Understand what type of interaction you have. Understand what kind of data you're passing away, what kind of permissions you're giving to that X third party, whatever that you're engaging with. And then you will be able to do some kind of even mitigation actions prior, not connecting them to the production environment, not giving them read access. Like what's read access? If somebody gets read access to all of my Salesforce accounts, that's it, it's game over. And again, how do you know how they secure the data? It's much easier. Like I would mention a lot of even aggregate things. We mentioned the marketplaces. These marketplaces have offerings. These offerings have third parties that they're using also. So even the aggregate of the fourth parties is important. Okay, let's take an example, okay? A really straightforward one of hacking your hosting provider. Hosting provider, and most of the times people say, no, it's only my marketing website, which is literally connected to your DNS provider. Okay, you're controlling all of your domains through that. And by the way, if they hack that service provider, which is detached, they're holding your data. Not only that, your customers are accessing that website or that application, immediately having some kind of reputational damage, defacement, drive-by downloads, all sorts of like really, I would say, out of the box attacks that are really, really easy to implement. And basically they can steal everything and even create large and vast impact on your company and on its operation, which is business continuity is really, really important. It's not even like security. It's basically having some kind of ability to even recover, okay, and change and respond, which you basically can't do if you don't have any visibility on that. Somebody has all of your data and you don't know where it was gone from, and that's it. And that whole use case of creating some kind of even relationship, I'm sorry for the language, but who do you contact when shit hits the fan? Okay, it's problematic. You don't even know who to engage with a third party. So you need to create, again, what Ofer mentioned about
I
engaging.
probably will call Ofer, but yeah.
Yeah, really engaging with them, doing some kind of like even action afterwards. Or how do you get visibility on what was wrong? And again, going back to the legal part of it, data privacy, etc., you have the immediate even responsibility contractually to kind of like say back to your customers, I got like something right now, I'm handling that. I need to create some kind of process, because if you don't do that, basically you can, like close the shop, because you will get so many lawsuits that basically you'd rather close your company.
I'm laughing because I've been teaching CCSK for I think 8 years now, and CCSK we have an incident response model. The most important thing for many years, the most important thing in this incident response model was a big slide saying you know who to call. Because
exactly.
so many times I received like a phone call 2:00 at night. Moshe, do you have a contact at AWS or Microsoft? Because we're having an incident, I have no idea who to approach.
I thought they were asking about that slide. Did you have an answer for that, slide?
You can put my picture.
Exactly. So from now on, I'm adding your picture to the call. So yeah, the question of who do you post your data to, and later on when you I will use better word, when something hit the fans. So you should probably know who to call. Yeah, it's amazing how many people miss this small option, and it's very easy to board those companies. I mean, put in your email, put in your credit card, you're in. But when something happens, definitely go try to look for the support phone call. That's a big challenge.
I want to add one small thing about that, because that came up pretty big in the incidents we had with third parties, because we are trying to investigate and we need the logs, right? And we have the logs of our customer, but for instance, GitHub is a separate logs, and they don't give you everything by default. You can ask them to get some of it. And then the other third party, which was the actual app, again, you have to chase them. And I think that's part of the challenge and part of readiness. Like you say, it's not just who to call, but how do you make sure you have access to the full log trail to investigate when something bad happens? And that's not easy with third parties at all.
Yeah. We have a couple of minutes left, but you're yourself, you're a cloud provider, you're a SaaS provider. And after everything we talked, and again, you're pushing people to protect SaaS. How do you handle the tough questions? I mean, how do you?
So first of all, it's not only that we're a SaaS provider, we're also directly engaging with the production environment. So it's not just having the ability to protect the data, rather than also we are providing the maximum availability, just like cloud provider, using multi-region and a multi-cloud environment that we've built.
This is important, because I must emphasize this, because if you are not available, the entire secrets are not available, so the entire application is not available.
It's
so
true.
Availability
it's
is
true.
very important to you.
And this is why availability is one of our core values. And this is why we provide that currently between 4 to 5 nines. So we've done a lot in terms of resiliency and in terms of availability. Again, between like multi-region environment and also multi-cloud environment. So we would be always on. So that's one. But in terms of data, and I've mentioned that at the beginning of our talk, so that was exactly where we started. We said that we need to have the ability to basically hold the data of our customers, which is secrets, those credentials and API keys, without everyone have the ability to attack us somehow and to grab those API keys from us. So we have leveraged the patented technology of our CTO that he came with. He came up with this idea of having those cryptographic operations using fragments of encryption keys without ever combining them. So that's totally different from Shamir secret sharing, where you have those this key and you fragment it and then you grab it all together. So with our technologies, basically those fragments are being created on different regions, on different cloud providers, and the actual cryptography takes place on the customer side, sometimes even right on the client side in the application level, either mobile, Java, JavaScript, whatever. So we support the old application encryption as a service method, and we're using it in order to encrypt those credentials. So one of the fragments of the key, and regardless if it's one or many, it depends on the architecture and the decision of our customers. But basically, there is one customer fragment that is stored on the customer side using our gateways that we provide, which is very easy to consume. It's a stateless Docker container. So it is on their side, and we as a service provider do not have all the fragments of the keys. So the fragments are never combined, plus we never have all of them together. So it means that every data that is being encrypted or decrypted, we cannot see its value no matter where in the process. So on the one hand, we've provided the encryption keys mechanism, the secrets management mechanism, and on the other hand, we are not exposing our customers to any kind of attack from a third party, because if someone steals our data, it's a random bit. They cannot do nothing with it. In terms of authentication, by the way, we have added more and more mechanisms in order to make sure that the authentication is being kept better. And that's what I've mentioned earlier with our universal identity product that we have provided, especially for either on-prem environments or for sub-identities where, for instance, if you're having your own Kubernetes cluster and you want to identify and to have secrets, currently, as the current technology provides, you need to expose all of your secrets to that cluster. You cannot differentiate between pods and namespaces. So we've added another layer of segregation. And just one quick sentence about what things my colleagues here have mentioned about the ability to have access and permanent access. So we provide dynamic access for all of the production environment of yours, never mind if it's in the on-prem or out there in the public cloud. But basically the point is to get to zero standing permissions, as the analysts say. And we are totally providing that ability either for human access or for machine access. So machines can authenticate to databases using temporary credentials, and also humans can access Linux servers using temporary SSH certificates. So all of the things that we provide using secrets and access, they are temporary and just in time and ephemeral by nature. So no one can grab those tokens, as everyone are talking with, that bad configuration of S3 and so on and so forth. Tokens are ephemeral by nature.
I think this is a glimpse also to how a new technology should look like. I mean, in the end, all of the platforms would look like this with temporary credentials and ephemeral and no static keys. I mean, basically what you're building will probably, this is how SaaS provider will be look like in 3 or 4 years.
So as long as they have the programmatic approach to do so, we provide it already. So no matter what SaaS provider that you're using, we are able to rotate their API keys. And by that, no matter if Git has versioning, as Ofer mentioned, anytime that you're running that code, it gets new type of token.
Okay. So we're running out of time and we have another session coming. So first of all, I want to thank you, all of you. I'm going to summarize in a second, and I'm going to leave 1 minute to each one of you to maybe say one sentence if you want to. For me, summarizing cloud is different. Cloud is different because it's heavily interconnected. We're using so many third parties instead of developing ourselves. And it's not going to change. I mean, people are pushing for more third parties. Nobody wants to, again, build a data center, build an application. People prefer to focus on their business. So challenging time, and the combined offering of 3 of you will probably solve many of our challenges. So good luck to you all, and thank you for staying here. Welcome to say one more sentence. Oded, start from you since you're the not muted one.
Obviously, yeah, no problem. I believe in DevOps. I believe in developers having more security, and I hope we're going to see more and more tools in that sphere, in that area. And thank you for having me, Moshe, and thank you guys for being my colleagues for that panel.
Thank you, Oded. Demi, last words.
Yeah, I thank you very much for the hosting. I really like talking to you each time, you know that. And basically getting visibility on whatever is connected to you and keeping track on that, which is really, really hard, especially with all the increasing numbers of services that we're using, and trying to understand at least how to respond, like, is super important. And once you actually get that visibility, then you can do something. I think this is one of the most important things that you need to understand. Okay, and once you understood that, then we could go to creating security.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Demi. Thank you for your time. Ofer, last words? You're muted.
I hope not last.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I think, this discussion is showing a lot of the complications we have with cloud. And I think part of the shift is not just thinking about protection and detection, which we should, of course, with all these tools, but realize that we're going to get attacked, we're going to get breached, and we need to think of resiliency and how to be prepared for breaches. And that's the torch I'm carrying these days. So let's hope we see a lot of change in this space.
Perfect. Okay,
thank
you all.
Do you see here the name? Is it okay or reversed? I see it reversed on my name.
No, it's
okay,
fine.
Great.
Yeah. It's definitely fine. Thank you all for your time. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Keep
Cheers, guys. Thank you very
creating,
much.
Safe. Bye bye.
keep
Thank
making
you.
the cloud secure. Bye bye.